Hey everyone, today I'm mixing it up a bit. I've been wanting to do this for years, and I just happened to get some new video editing software and I was like, what the heck? I'll be going over some of the coolest, most epic, legendary status swords in all of nerddom. So I hope you enjoy, because here we go! Sword Art Online, one of the easiest places to pick from when it comes to handheld weaponry, but there are two swords that really stand out in this anime. The swords of the main protagonist Kirito. Kirito's main weapon in the series is the elucidator. The very iconic black sword was a demonic monster drop from a boss he fights on the 50th floor. His secondary weapon, which actually doesn't get introduced fully in a fight until the scene right here, is the Dark Repulsor. It was a sword created by the blacksmith Lisbeth out of the crystalline ingot, obtained during a special quest. As beautiful as it is, it was eventually destroyed in the fight versus the game's creator, Akihiko Kayaba, on the 75th floor. The Executioner's Blade. Wielded by Zabuza, this sword is belonging to one of the 7 swords into the mist, a title handed down to the greatest blade-wielding shinobi of that generation. The sword made its big debut in the fight against Kakashi in the Naruto series. After Zabuza's end was met in battle, it was left at Zabuza's grave. It later made an appearance after Zabuza was raised from the dead against his will during the fight of the Great War, leading to another emotionally fueled fight between Kakashi and him. Kakashi, after putting rest to his frenemy, Kakashi takes up the sword, imbues it with lightning, and continues on the battlefield. The Master Sword. I cannot think of a more dominant sword when it comes to slaying evil. Wielded by the hero Link, the Master Sword, also known as the Blade of Evil's Bane, is a recurring legendary sword in the Legend of Zelda series. Originally crafted by the goddess Hylia as the Goddess Sword, it was later forged in the Master Sword by the goddess's chosen hero and its spirit Fi, who bathed it in 3 sacred flames located across the land that would become the Kingdom of Hyrule. Din's flame, in particular, imbued it with the power to repel evil, a power apparently augmented after the sword received the blessing of Zelda, which transformed the blade into the true Master Sword that it is. It is usually the only sword that can defeat Ganon in the games that it appears in. True to its name, the sword is often seen to choose or accept the master by its own will. Always a hero who has gone through great trials to test his courage, wisdom, and power to prove him worthy of wielding it. Trunk Sword, memorable because not all Z-Fighters actually use a weapon. The sword first showcases in the fight against androids 17 and 18 in the future where the androids have taken over the planet. Skynet. Trunks travels back in time in order to seek the aid of Goku and create a hope of a better future, with another powerful sword showcase in this timeline by chopping Frieza into lunch meat. At the end of the Dragon Ball Z Wrath of the Dragon, the main plot character Tapion gives his sword to Trunks and states he thinks it was always his, possibly making a reference to future Trunks' sword, Tapion's sword looking very similar to future Trunks' own blade. This movie may explain why present Trunks has a sword in Dragon Ball GT, but this cannot be the exact origin of future Trunks' sword due to the fact that future Trunks comes from a timeline where the Z-Fighters are dead and the androids reign supreme. Even though it is unknown if they ever met in future Trunks' timeline, in the ending credits of Wrath of the Dragon, future Trunks can be seen wielding the sword after it is given to present Trunks by Tapion. Next up, the Eternal Sword. The Eternal Sword is a legendary sword capable of cleaving the fabric of space and time itself. The Eternal Sword was created by Origin, the King of Summon Spirits, at the request of Mythos Yggdrasil, who held the pack with him at the time. Mythos used the Eternal Sword to split the world into 2 halves, placing each world in a separate dimension tied to each other via the mana links, in order to prevent the world's destruction. Because the sword was specifically made for Mythos, only those of elven blood can wield it. After the events of Origin's Seal, the Summoned Spirit gives Lloyd the ability to wield the sword. At the Tower of Salvation, the sword's power divides between Lloyd's material blades, allowing the 2 blades to combine together to make the Eternal Sword. At the end of the game, Lloyd uses the sword to reunite the 2 worlds, but since the new world would perish without the mana link, both Lloyd and Colette Brunel had to use the sword to germinate the Great Seed and form the World Tree. Ragnarok, also known as the Demon Sword, is the Demon Sword weapon partner of Krona and a reoccurring antagonist along with his partner throughout Soul Eater. Born a normal demon weapon, he was melted down by Medusa in a vat of black blood while in his weapon form and mixed into Krona's blood. As he is part of Krona's blood, Ragnarok can control it, shape it in accordance to his soul wavelength. He can use it to bend spikes of blood from droplets, develop missiles, and perhaps most impressively, harden the blood to protect the Meister from harm, whether by clotting an open wound or simply increasing their stamina. It can create wings for the ability of flight and turn his blood into mad blood, flooding entire cities with the stuff, and anyone willing to try and break the now hardened blood will go insane. Ragnarok possesses a variety of references to Viking lore, most notably his name, which comes from the Ragnarok series of events within Norse mythology. Given his status as a demon sword, Krona's supposed need to become the world-destroying Kishin, Medusa's stance on evolution, his name is appropriate. The Ragnarok events dictate the end of the world and the emergence of a new and better one afterwards. Samurai Jack's sword is a Japanese katana forged by the deities Odin, Ra, and Vishnu, and from the power of righteousness within the samurai lord's heart. The sword is the only power that can harm Aku. Jack's sword can only be used for good, but in the hands of evil it cannot harm an innocent. This was proven when Aku managed to steal the sword from Jack, and he could not use it to harm the samurai. This was something that Jack himself had forgotten. The sword has the power to cut through any mundane substance, given that there is enough force behind it. Last up for this episode, the Fusion Swords. The Fusion Swords are composed of 6 separate swords that assemble into a single large sword. The Fusion Swords in their various states of combination serve as Cloud's primary weapon in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Barring the first sword, the individual swords are not named, but they otherwise can be distinguished by their distinctive appearances and functions. The Fusion Sword consists of one main blade, the first sword, one hollow blade that serves as the front edge, 2 identical but asymmetrical opposite blades that form the back, and 2 identical, also asymmetrical opposite smaller blades that attach to the sides. In Advent Children, Cloud defeats Sephiroth using a different version of Omnislash version 5. No official name has been used for this new attack, but fans have dubbed it Omnislash version 6 in line with the naming of the original. Compared to the original version 5, this version is a longer sequence of 13 slashes. Cloud attacks using the auxiliary blades 8 times, and 4 of the energy silhouettes attack as he dives down for the final slash. Cloud glows blue as he does when performing the other limit breaks, rather than glowing gold as he did with version 5 in Advent Children. In the Reunion Files book for Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Tetsuya Nomura joked about choosing to give Cloud 6 swords due to the comment that had been made over the Buster Sword's size. People joke that since Cloud went with size last time, he should go with sheer numbers this time. The original idea was for Cloud to have 6 individual swords he would carry on his back, and the concept was modified for 6 interlocking swords. That is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed. I will be making more episodes in the future to really highlight and do some justice to some of our favorite swords out there. So stay tuned.